Guru Brahma Guru Vishnu Guru Devo Maheshwaraha Gurureva Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Chinmayam Vyapyat Sarvam Trailokyam Sacharacharam Tatpadam Darshitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Tvameva Mata Chapita Tvameva Bandhuscha Sakha Tvameva Vidyadraminam Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Tvameva Sarvam Mama Deva Deva Jai. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahana Bhunatu Sahaviryam Bhavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. So where are we in our text?
Chapter 59.
Will you help us out, please?
Yeah. 59. Desire and fear, self-centered states. Desire and fear both are self-centered states. Between desire and fear, anger rises. With anger, hatred, and with hatred, passion for destruction. War is hatred in action, organized and equipped with all the instruments of death.
How timely.
Questioner, I would like to go again into the question of pleasure and pain, desire and fear. I understand fear, which is memory and anticipation of pain. It is essential for the preservation of the organism and its living pattern. Needs, when felt, are painful, and their anticipation is full of fear. We are rightly afraid of not being able to meet our basic needs. The relief experienced when a need is met or an anxiety allayed is entirely due to the ending of the pain. We may give it positive names like pleasure, joy, or happiness, but essentially it is relief from pain. It is this fear of pain that holds together our social, economic, and political institutions. What puzzles me is that we derive pleasure from such things and states of mind which have nothing to do with survival. On the contrary, our pleasures are usually destructive. They damage or destroy the object, the instrument, and also the subject of pleasure. Otherwise, pleasure and pursuit of pleasure would be no problem. This brings me to the core of my question. Why is pleasure destructive? Why, in spite of its destructiveness, is it wanted? I may add that I do not have in mind the pleasure-pain pattern by which nature compels us to go her way. I am thinking of the man-made pleasures, both sensory and subtle, ranging from the grossest, like overeating, to the most refined. Addiction to pleasure at whatever cost is so universal that there must be something significant at the root of it. Of course, not every activity of man must be utilitarian, designed to meet a need. Play, for example, is natural, and man is the most playful animal in existence. Play fulfills the need for self-discovery and self-development. But even in his play, man becomes destructive of nature, others, and himself. Maharaj, in short, you do not object to pleasure, but only to its price in pain and sorrow. Questioner, if reality itself is bliss, then pleasure in some way must be related to it. Maharaj, let us not proceed by verbal logic. The bliss of reality does not exclude suffering. Besides, you know only pleasure, not the bliss of pure being.
Now let's stop there a minute. The scriptures describe the self as Sat Chit Ananda. Pure existence, Sat. Chit, awareness or consciousness itself. Ananda is usually translated as bliss absolute. Now, the self is a changeless reality. It does not come and go. We are always experiencing the self, whether we know it or not. But are you happy all the time? Are you?
Yeah.
Therefore, what you think bliss is can't be what bliss is.
Mhm.
Do you see that? Yeah. Because my idea of what bliss is, pleasure, comes and goes. It's incredibly conditional. So our understanding of ananda needs to shift. We need to see it as something that is a changeless, eternal reality. This is why, especially for beginner students, I like to define ananda as no sorrow reaches there. Physical pain and pleasure gets to my body. If someone punches me, it hurts. If I get a massage, it feels really good. Emotional pleasure and suffering goes to my mind. When the situation is conducive, I'm happy. When it's not conducive, I'm sad. Intellect, when I have certainty, peace of mind, I'm happy. When I have doubt or anxiety, I'm unhappy. But none of it touches me, the unattached witness of it all. No sorrow reaches me. Now we'll see what Maharaj, how he expands this. But those of us who did Panchadashi on Monday nights, the last 5 chapters on the nature of bliss, he talks about being blissful, a mind that is blissful. How many times do I refer to Hanuman embracing Ram? And Vidyaranya divides being blissful into 3 categories. Vasanananda, the bliss of deep sleep. All my problems go away in deep sleep. Vishayananda, the bliss I experience through a sense object. And Brahmananda, when the yogi develops that special trick of just casting off the mind and letting it come home to the sound. And he uses a phrase which I have shamelessly stolen because I love it so much. Brahmananda rasa swad. Swad means to taste. Rasa means the juice. So tasting the juice of the bliss of Brahman. It is Brahman itself that does that? No, it's the mind. So going on, let's see what Maharaj says.
So let us examine pleasure at its own level. If you look at yourself in your moments of pleasure or pain, you will invariably find that it is not the thing in itself that is pleasant or painful, but the situation of which it is a part. Pleasure lies in the relationship between the enjoyer and the enjoyed, and the essence of it is acceptance. Whatever may be the situation, if it is acceptable, it is pleasant. If it is not acceptable, it is painful.
So I think one of the easiest ways to understand that, last Sunday was the Folsom Street Fair. So people all in leather who were into kinky stuff. So if some person, part of their sexual fetish is they like to be spanked, what for one person is physically painful, for them becomes very erotic and pleasurable. What's the difference? Acceptance, the non-resistance of sensation. Going on.
What makes it acceptable is not important. The cause may be physical, psychological, or untraceable. Acceptance is the decisive factor. Firstly, suffering is due to non-acceptance. Questioner: pain is not acceptable. Maharaj: why not? Did you ever try? Do try, and you will find in pain a joy which pleasure cannot yield, for the simple reason that acceptance of pain takes you much deeper than pleasure does. The personal self, by its very nature, is constantly pursuing pleasure and avoiding pain. The ending of this pattern is the ending of the self. The ending of the self with its desires and fears enables you to return to your real nature, the source of all happiness and peace. The perennial desire for pleasure is the reflection of the timeless harmony within. It is an observable fact that one becomes self-conscious only when caught in the conflict between pleasure and pain, which demands choice and decision. It is this clash between desire and fear that causes anger, which is the great destroyer of sanity in life. When pain is accepted for what it is, a lesson and a warning, and deeply looked into and heeded, the separation between pain and pleasure breaks down, and both become experience, painful when resisted, joyful when accepted. Questioner. Do you advise shunning pleasure and pursuing pain? Maharaj. No, nor pursuing pleasure and shunning pain. Accept both as they come, enjoy both while they last, then let them go as they must.
So I had a very dear friend who was my advisor when I was studying up at the Graduate Theological Union. And I've told this story before that when I lost my sight in 2000, her comment to me was, "Oh, Jim, tough gift, isn't it?" Yeah. And I just loved it, just loved it. Because what she was saying, it's very Franciscan, but it's the same thing Maharaj is saying, seeing every life experience as gift without the sense of resistance. Now, back in the 1970s, I took the EST training with Werner Erhard. It was what it was. But one of the things Werner did that I thought was fascinating, he would ask someone during the training if they had a headache. And if someone raised their hand, he'd have them come up on the stage and they'd sit on a stool. And he would say, "Okay, where is it?" "Well, it's on the right side." "Well, how big is it?" "Well, it's about the size of a 50-cent piece." "Well, what color is it?" "Well, it's kind of brown green." And then he'd keep bringing their attention back so they fully experienced the headache. And usually within 5 or 10 minutes, the headache would go away. It's fascinating. So what it reveals is one of the most important laws of the mind. Any psychological experience that is fully experienced, any phenomenon that is fully experienced, tends to dissipate. Any phenomenon that is denied or resisted tends to persist. So, as a mental health professional, if someone has, let's say, a childhood trauma or abuse, and they deny it, they suppress it, what tends to happen as they move through their life?
They act as if that trauma is still happening. That trauma persists in their action with their psyche subconsciously.
So if they're in the therapeutic environment and they've got a good therapist and they're able to actually experience it, feel the feelings, they're there in your office, what tends to happen?
Change. They're free. They're usually free of some level of trauma.
Yes. Doesn't mean they wipe it out, but it tends to dissipate. The emotional charge is not as much. If you're aware of it and conscious, you're less likely to act out on it unconsciously. Have I said it right?
Yeah.
Yeah. This is what Maharaj is saying. And what it is when discomfort arises, oh, look at that. Lean into it. Don't resist, deny, run, hide, distract. Any thoughts on this?
I would just add, like, lean into it, like, with compassion.
Yeah. It's a gift. Tough gift sometimes, but gift. All right, going on.
Maharaj. Or questioner, sorry. How can I possibly enjoy pain? Physical pain calls for action. Maharaj. Of course, and so does mental pain. The bliss is in the awareness of it, in not shrinking or in any way turning away from it. All happiness comes from awareness. The more we are conscious, the deeper the joy. Acceptance of pain, non-resistance, courage, and endurance. These open deep and perennial sources of real happiness, true bliss. Questioner. Why should pain be more effective than pleasure? Maharaj. Pleasure is readily accepted, while all the powers of the self reject pain. As the acceptance of pain is the denial of the self, and the self stands in the way of true happiness, the wholehearted acceptance of pain releases the springs of happiness.
And here he means the small self, I assume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Questioner. Does the acceptance of suffering act the same way? Maharaj. The fact of pain is easily brought within the focus of awareness. With suffering, it is not that simple. To focus on suffering is not enough, for mental life, as we know it, is one continuous stream of suffering. To reach the deeper layers of suffering, you must go to its roots and uncover their vast underground network, where fear and desire are closely interwoven, and the currents of life's energy oppose, obstruct, and destroy each other. Questioner. How can I set right a tangle which is entirely below the level of my consciousness? Maharaj. By being with yourself, the I am. By watching yourself in your daily life with alert interest, with the intention to understand rather than to judge, in full acceptance of whatever may emerge.
So one of the things he's implying there is how contradictory the investments of the mind are. I want to be alone, but I don't want to be alone. I want company. I want to have a partner, a significant other, but I want perfect freedom. I want everybody to pay attention to me, but I can't stand to be the center of attention. All of us have these double bind fears and desires. No wonder we're a mess. And one of the things he's inviting us to do is if you meditate and you witness, we have what I'm calling now the unloading of the unconscious. This stuff comes up, and you see these incredibly conflicting desires. How can one they can be reconciled? They can't. You just have to be present to the absurdity of it all. Any thoughts? Going on.
In full acceptance of whatever may emerge, because it is there you encourage the deep to come to the surface and enrich your life and consciousness with its captive energies. This is the great work of awareness, It removes obstacles and releases energies by understanding the nature of life and mind. Intelligence is the door to freedom, and alert attention is the mother of intelligence. Questioner. One more question. Why does pleasure end in pain? Maharaj. Everything has a beginning and an end, and so does pleasure. Don't anticipate and don't regret, and there will be no pain. It is memory and imagination that cause suffering. Of course, pain after pleasure may be due to the misuse of the body or the mind. The body knows its measure, but the mind does not. Its appetites are numberless and limitless. Watch your mind with great diligence, for there lies your bondage and also the key to freedom. Questioner. My question is not yet fully answered. Why are man's pleasures destructive? Why does he find so much pleasure in destruction? Life's concern lies in protection, perpetuation, and expansion of itself. In this, it is guided by pain and pleasure. At what point do they become destructive? Haraj. When the mind takes over, remembers and anticipates, it exaggerates, it distorts, it overlooks. The past is projected into the future, and the future betrays expectations. The organs of sensation and action are stimulated beyond capacity, and they invariably break down. The objects of pleasure cannot yield what is expected of them, and get worn out or destroyed by misuse. This results in excess of pain where pleasure was looked for. Questioner. We destroy not only ourselves, but others too. Maharaj. Naturally, selfishness is always destructive. Desire and fear both are self-centered states. Between desire and fear, anger arises. With anger, hatred, and with hatred, passion for destruction. War is hatred in action, organized and equipped with all the instruments of death. Questioner. Is there a way to end these horrors? Maharaj. When more people come to know their real nature, their influence, however subtle, will prevail, and the world's emotional atmosphere will sweeten. People follow their leaders, and when among the leaders appear some who are great in heart and mind, and absolutely free from self-seeking, their impact will be enough to make the crudities and crimes of the present age impossible.
So let me stop there. Because we are in a current historical period where this teaching is so relevant. It is so relevant. I was talking with someone who was a Trump supporter, and I was sharing my opinion that I have deep concerns because of character issues. This is a person who thinks that fighting, revenge, war, lying, greed are positive values. And this person's response was, we're not electing a Sunday school teacher. He was of the opinion that perhaps this was a way to bring about a better society. I know that this fellow wants a better society. His goals are noble, but character is important. One, simply because of the law of karma. The energy we put out in action, physically and emotionally, impacts the society at large and will return in kind. Fighting for peace is an oxymoron. I was talking with a young man yesterday who years ago was an activist on the progressive side. And 10 years ago, he firmly believed that destruction was an effective tool for an activist. And it's a gross misunderstanding of karma. Well, they did, blah, 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 blah. And your point is? So if we choose to want to make a difference in the society, which I think is a noble endeavor, certainly was Swamiji's goal. Certainly was Swamiji's goal. Our actions, our intentions, and our emotional states are incredibly important. Be part of the solution, not part of the problem. And this was the great message of Mahatma Gandhi's Satyagraha. That's what he called his movement. What does that literally mean? How would you translate it from the Hindi?
The insistence on truth.
Graha means to grab,
Mm.
holding fast to truth. But Satya means more than just truthfulness. It means integrity as well. And we should all practice Satyagraha, holding fast to truth, holding fast to integrity. So if I get angry and am hateful or harmful towards another person, I'm contributing to the larger societal environment of redress and revenge. If, on the other hand, I can disagree without being disagreeable, if I can seek understanding, acceptance, forgiveness, most importantly, all of the moral precepts of yoga. If you can't remember the yamas and niyamas, when we list the yamas, the first five, what's the very first one? Anybody remember?
Ahimsa.
Ahimsa. All of them reduce themselves to ahimsa. Non-harm, non-injury, non-violence. And the first five, the yamas, are non-violence towards the society. And the niyamas, the internal ones, are non-violence towards myself. So to try to save the turkeys and scream and yell at your friends and husband and or wife, you've missed the point. So it's incredibly important. And Maharaj intimates this. If enough people practice this, then society changes. And that's what Swamiji tried to do after independence. He says, now India is free. Now we need to free Indians. All right. Any thoughts or questions about this?
I saw Swami Chimayananda quote from Gita, but he was saying, if you see, if we're all in the self, there's no other, everything you see, every action, every person is part of is yourself. And so that takes away that need to have any conflict real. I mean, those aren't really his words, but I'm just thinking about how we're in this time in our society where there's a real buildup of the other that is not
Yeah.
Part of who we are. And that is a strong message. But it's interesting to see that, to think about those two points of view, or philosophies, whatever, in conflict.
And it doesn't mean we won't have disagreements. Something very present and practical here in Oakland, homelessness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Nobody wants homelessness. But how do we solve the problem? So we can have disagreements about the solution, of course. Does this policy work better than that policy? That's just part of the human condition. But that's different than saying you're scum. I hate my enemies. We're at war with aspects of the American society. It's very sad. But I've been angry before. I know what it feels like to be angry. I understand. Anyway, that's my little spiel this morning. Any thoughts?
Well, I'm thinking about how anger and other emotions as well are signals. They're messengers.
Exactly.
So that anger is like something is not right, something needs remedying. And channeling that, transmuting it to action.
And let's look at what that means. So the feeling is one thing, then the action is another. One of the things a yogi has to understand, just because I have an impulse does not mean I need to take an action. That's what a 2-year-old does.
Right.
But why am I angry? I'm almost always angry because I didn't get what I want. That's yoga's definition of it. Thwarted desire, unmet expectation. Now, that doesn't mean that the way I want it is wrong. And there are subtleties to it. My ego always says, I'm angry because the other person isn't doing life right. And I'll feel better when they change. Am I wrong?
No.
And they may be doing life wrong, according to my viewpoint. But what's the solution? The solution is not violence. Now, what's interesting, Bhagavad Gita advocates war. There's paradoxes in the teaching. Arjuna is Kshatriya. What is the basic action message that Krishna gives Arjuna?
Don't fight.
Go fight with a cool heart. Yet, when we talk about the divine and devilish estates, for the divine, it talks about ahimsa, non-violence, non-injury. How do we reconcile this? My particular view on it, there will be people in the world who will fight. They are the Kshatriyas. But as a yogi, I choose to walk a different dharma, the dharma of ahimsa. In the Hindu tradition, if you're a Brahmin, you're suggested to be a vegetarian, maybe even a vegan. But what are the dietary suggestions for a Kshatriya?
Eating meat. Rajasic diet.
Say what?
Eating meat and a Rajasic diet.
Yeah. So does Hinduism teach vegetarianism or meat eating? Yes. Depends upon your swadharma. So we also have to live with these apparent contradictions in life. But what's the path that you choose to walk? Going on.
A new golden age may come and last for a time and succumb to its own perfection. For ebb begins when the tide is at its highest. Questioner. Is there no such thing as permanent perfection? Maharaj. Yes, there is, but it includes all imperfection. It is the perfection of our self-nature which makes everything possible, perceivable, interesting. It knows no suffering, for it neither likes nor dislikes, neither accepts nor rejects. Creation and destruction are the two poles between which it weaves its ever-changing pattern. Be free from predilections and preferences, and the mind, with its burden of sorrow, will be no more. Questioner. But I do not suffer alone. There are others. Maharaj. When you go to them with your desires and fears, you merely add to their sorrows. First, be free of suffering yourself, and only then you can hope to help others. You do not even need to hope. your very existence will be the greatest help a man can give his fellow man. That's the end of the chapter.
Beautiful stuff.
Yeah.
Beautiful stuff. Any thoughts before we go on? Okay.
Chapter 60. Live facts, not fancies. Facts are real. I live among them. But you live with fancies, not with facts. Facts never clash, while your life and world are full of contradictions. Contradiction is the mark of the false. The real never contradicts itself. Questioner. You say that whatever you see is yourself. You also admit that you see the world as we see it. Here is today's newspaper with all the horrors going on. Since the world is yourself, how can you explain such misbehavior? Maharaj, which world do you have in mind? Questioner, our common world, the one in which we live. Maharaj, are you sure we live in the same world? I do not mean nature, the sea and the land, plants and animals. They are not the problem, nor are the endless space, the infinite time, the inexhaustible power. Do not be misled by my eating and smoking, reading and talking. My mind is not here. My life is not here. Your world of desires and their fulfillment, of fears and their escapes, is definitely not my world. I do not even perceive it, except through what you tell me about it. It is your private dream world, and my only reaction to it is to ask you to stop dreaming. Questioner. Surely wars and revolutions are not dreams. Sick mothers and starving children are not dreams. Wealth, ill-gotten and misused, is not a dream. Maharaj, what else? Questioner. A dream cannot be shared. Maharaj, nor the waking state. All three states, waking, dream, and sleeping, are subjective, personal, intimate. They all happen to and are contained within the little bubble in consciousness called I. The real world lies beyond the self. Questioner, self or no self, facts are real. Maharaj, of course facts are real. I live with them, but you live with fancies, not with facts. Facts never clash, while your life and world are full of contradictions. Contradiction is the mark of the false. The real never contradicts itself. For instance, you complain that people are abjectly poor, yet you do not share your riches with them. You mind the war next door, but you hardly give it a thought when it is in some far-off country. The shifting fortunes of your ego determine your values. I think, I want, I must, are made into absolutes. Questioner. Nevertheless, the evil is real. Maharaj, not more real than you are. Evil is the wrong approach to problems created by misunderstanding and misuse.
Oh, that's marvelous. Read that sentence again, please.
Evil is the wrong approach to problems created by misunderstanding and misuse.
So the problem so many of us have, we think of the other as bad, scum, evil, stupid. And what Maharaj is saying is no. This sentence describes what we perceive as the evil, destructive person. I'll read it one more time, and we'll go on.
Evil is in the wrong approach to problems created by misunderstanding and misuse.
That's all it is. Doesn't mean it's not painful. Going on.
It is a vicious circle. Questioner. Can the circle be broken? Maharaj. A false circle need not be broken. It is enough to see it as it is, non-existent. Questioner. But real enough to make us submit to and inflict indignities and atrocities. Maharaj. Insanity is universal. Sanity is rare. Yet there is hope, because the moment we perceive our insanity, we are on the way to sanity. This is the function of the Guru, to make us see the madness of our daily living. Life makes you conscious, but the teacher makes you aware. Questioner. Sir, you are neither the first nor the last. Since time immemorial, people have been breaking into reality. Yet how little it has affected our lives. The Ramas and the Krishnas and the Buddhas and the Christs have come and gone, and we are as we were, wallowing in sweat and tears. Wallowing in sweat and tears. What have the great ones done whose lives we witnessed? What have you done, sir, to alleviate the world's suffering? Maharaj. You alone can undo the evil you have created. Your own callous selfishness is at the root of it. First, put your own house in order, and you will see that your work is done. Questioner. The men of wisdom and of love who came before us did not set themselves right. The men of wisdom and of love who came before us did set themselves right, often at a tremendous cost. What was the outcome? A shooting star, however bright, does not make the night less dark. Maharaj, to judge them and their work, you must become one of them. A frog in a well knows nothing about the birds in the sky. Questioner. Do you mean to say that between good and evil there is no wall? Maharaj. There is no wall because there is no good and no evil. In every concrete situation, there is only the necessary and the unnecessary. The needful is right, the needless is wrong. Questioner. Who decides? Maharaj. The situation decides. Every situation is a challenge which demands the right response. When the response is right, the challenge is met and the problem ceases. If the response is wrong, the challenge is not met and the problem remains unsolved. Your unsolved problems, that is what constitutes your karma. Solve them rightly and be free. Questioner. You seem to drive me always back into myself. Is there no objective solution to the world's problems? Maharaj. The world's problems were created by numberless people like you, each full of their own desires and fears. Who can free you of your past, personal and social, except yourself? And how will you do it unless you see the urgent need of your first being free of cravings born of illusion? How can you truly help as long as you need help yourself? Questioner. In what way did the ancient sages help? In what way do you help? A few individuals profit, no doubt. Your guidance and example may mean a lot to them. But in what way do you affect humanity, the totality of life and consciousness? You say that you are the world, and the world is you. What impact have you made on it? Maharaj. What kind of impact do you expect? Questioner. Man is stupid, selfish, and cruel. Maharaj. Man is also wise, affectionate, and kind. Questioner. Why does goodness not prevail? Maharaj. It does, in my real world. In my world, even what you call evil is the servant of the good, and therefore necessary. It is like boils and fevers that clear the body of impurities. Disease is painful, even dangerous, but if dealt with rightly, it heals. Questioner, or kills. Maharaj. In some cases, death is the best cure. A life may be worse than death, which is but rarely an unpleasant experience, whatever the appearances. Therefore, pity the living, not the dead, never the dead. This problem of things being good and evil in themselves does not exist in my world. The needful is good, and the needless is evil. In your world, the pleasant is good, and the painful is evil. Questioner, what is necessary? Sorry, Maharaj. To grow is necessary. To outgrow is necessary. To leave behind the good for the sake of the better is necessary. Questioner, to what end? Maharaj, the end is in the beginning. You end where you start, in the absolute. Questioner, why all this trouble then? To come back to where I started. Maharaj, whose trouble? Which trouble? Do you pity the seed that is to grow and multiply until it becomes a mighty forest? Do you kill an infant to save him from the bother of living? What is wrong with life? Ever more light. Remove the obstacles to growing, and all your personal, social, economic, and political problems will just dissolve. The universe is perfect as a whole, and the parts striving for perfection is a way of joy. Willingly sacrifice the imperfect to the perfect, and there will be no more talk about good and evil. Questioner, yet we are afraid of the better and cling to the worse. Maharaj, this is our stupidity, verging on insanity.
Yes.
That's the end of the chapter.
No.
All right, I think we'll stop there. Very timely,
Yes.
very timely. Be kind to people. Love your neighbor as yourself. The Master Jesus said, love your enemies. Even the Gentiles love their friends. I say unto you, love your enemies. If a person hits you on the cheek, turn the other cheek. If the soldier says, carry my pack for a mile, carry it for 2. If a person steals your cloak, give him your coat. This was Jesus's direct way of saying, return good for evil. There are no evil people. There are people caught in the insanity, suffering because of their ignorance and misunderstanding, which causes them to do things that harm others and themselves. If we succumb to fear, and as a result, become part of the cycle of violence, then we're part of the problem, not part of the solution. Make sacrifices for the good. Give up greediness, selfishness, your own comfort. Spend yourself in love. Simple things. Okay, we'll end here today. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnameva Vashishyate. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Sri Guru Pyo Namaha. Hari Om.